Hey, this is the third Batrep from my games of the Dutch Nationals, and this game was a kicker. Um, this was at this point I was doing rather well. I was ahead. I had I won my first two games massively, and only the good players were going into round three with all wins. So I was looking good. Um, And I was also looking at facing off against one of the top players, whoever it was. It could be Manuel, Thomas, Michael, or Danny, or Martin, or one of them I would have to face off against at this point. So, and I drew Danny, and that was okay until I saw the table. Let me show you. So, bad rep from the Dutch Nationals game three. We were playing No Man's Land, which I was really happy about because No Man's Land is, of course, for kill points, and I was playing my Brits, my absolute killer Brits, with four Gurkhas, three Yellow motorcycles, two Darker Stewards, forward artillery observer, flamer and jeep, two times second lieutenant Inix, and an inexperienced medium mortar. And Danny had more order dice than me, but many of his order dice were easy to kill because he was bringing skirmish Americans. He had two lieutenants, two Marine squads, skirmishers with BARs, two engineers. One of them was a veteran. He had dodgers for them. He had a sniper. He had a war dog. He had two horse limbers, two multi-rocket launchers, and two Darker Stewards. Now, this list I am unafraid of until I saw the table. Because the list itself hasn't really got the tools to deal with my Gurkhas. It hasn't really got the tools to deal with an assault army that's well supported by pins, which is what I have. Um, what it really works on is keeping the opponent at range by the threat of the engineers and by the skirmishers and Darker Stewards delivering pins or whatever, keeping them at range and then multi-rocket launchering them. So, and I knew that I didn't want to play that game, but look at the damn table. Yes, that, ladies and gentlemen, that is 12 houses on the table. 12 houses. So the multi-rocket launchers were going to be absolutely brutal in this game. So my plan was to only be on one flank, to try and see if I could spread Danny's forces a little bit and then push only on one flank, whilst keeping away from houses and thus not being multi-rocket launched. This was always going to be difficult on a table like that. It just it's oh it is very, very rough trying to stay away from the enemy on that table. And I did not succeed, not all the way. So, deployment. With the 12 houses, and his steward sitting in the only spaces that multi-rocket launcher safe. Now I'll go back to the map here. No, maybe I'll go one forward. You can see it here. Right. The only place that's sort of multi-rocket launcher safe is this area over here. So I knew right away that I wanted to push either this area or this area here. One of these flanks would be my push area. I did not want to go through the center of the town, although I actually ended up doing a little bit of that, which was bad. But as you can see from all the yellow dots here, the yellow dots is where Danny set up. Danny spreads out, which is really what I wanted. Somehow my blue dot over here turned yellow. I don't know what. But if you'll see here, he sits quite early on in deployment. His steward sits here, which means that all of this area is under steward control. These hedges were a line of sight blocking for infantry, so I was pretty safe most of the time, but not from a steward. Danny deploys all his army but one of the dodges with engineers in it, and I deploy only my infantry, reserving all vehicles. And I think this was Danny's first major mistake. Um, I'll get back to why that is, but I think deploying everything was a huge mistake on his part. It both allowed me to turn towards one flank to push into an area where I wanted to go once I've seen his army deploy, but there was preparatory bombardment. So yeah, I deploy my Gurkhas here next to the windmill, and here and I sort of spread out quite a lot because I didn't want to get multi-launched. I set up my artillery observer behind this building and my medium mortar. The artillery observer could then move out and try to get line of sight to some of Danny's stuff. I have a lieutenant over here, so I spread out quite a lot because of the multi-launchers. Danny sets up his steward here. He has a sniper over here. He has some marines here. He has a horse-drawn limber here and here. He puts up his one engineer squad here and another steward here and a multi-launcher here. The last multi-launcher was somewhere over here with the marines. So very spread out, and he had line of sight to all houses, every single house in this on this board. He had access to it. It was just going to be rough, very, very rough, very early on, and the stewards were there to absolutely ducker this area down. So I have a tactical challenge, you might see. The critical moments. 1. Danny, in the setup, had not made a plan, and he forgot about preparatory bombardment, which meant that as soon as I say, well, we have to roll for preparatory bombardment now, he was like, oh crap, I forgot. I said, yes, you did. And he had deployed all his vehicles, all his weak stuff. It didn't cost him much, but it did cost him one steward, the steward on the road. That got immobilized. Then the rest got pinned and a few guys died. Nothing major. No further dice was killed, as I recall it. But it did cost him that one steward immobilized, which was going to be key because I now had an opportunity of moving away from that one steward. Unfortunately, it was right where it wanted to be. But so I start the tactical game. I start skirmishing, shooting. I start moving my artillery observer out where he can see something, where he can pin something, and I put him down right next to this area here, hoping to get both stewards and the multi-rocket launcher with the pins. And I also start pie slicing his multi-rocket launchers, start giving them pins, start shooting a little bit at them. While I'm doing that, I push up my Gurkhas slowly and deliberately along the flank. So the Gurkhas over here, they move up, they move up. Every time I'm not being shot at and going down because of reasons, I move up a little bit. And Danny actually said to me at the end of the game, I thought you would be way more aggressive with your Gurkhas. No, I was never going to do that. I wanted to keep my Gurkhas alive, but I wanted to keep them pushing up towards a turn 5-6 charge, where I would kill some units. I also start delivering pins and damage to this one multi-rocket launcher that sat over here. It felt like a soft target, and I felt like if I could just like pull one of those multi-rocket launchers out of action, I might have a chance at winning this game, not being attrited down by just rockets all the time. Unfortunately, there I make my first mistake. Back to critical moments. Most of this very deliberate push and skirmish means that I am, by turn 4, I'm ahead. I'm 3+ dice up on Danny, but then his multi-rocket launchers start hitting, and that actually gave him quite a lot of kills. At that point, he gets some shots where I thought that maybe he couldn't get them, but then he did get them, but and he had like 3+ units that he could hit. All of them small. And I went down with everything and wrecked it all I could. But he did kill some units, and he gained on me. Um, and then at the very, very end of the game, I'll go back to the mistakes in a minute, I promise. But at the very, very end of the game, I am still 3 dice up on him. So I win. No, I'm at this point, I'm 2 dice up on him. I am still winning. Um, and the last order dice is Danny saying his lieutenant is stuck in a house. He can see one of my lieutenants. But I'm behind cover and I'm down and I'm small team and whatever. So he'll need a 7 to hit. He brings out his rifle, rolls the first 6, takes up the dice, rolls another 6. So he's hit me. Then he needs to kill me. He needs a 3 because I'm inexperienced. He rolls a 3. So my loader dies. Now, at that point, I had 1 pin before. So I have 2 pins. But I'm lieutenant, so and inexperienced, so I need a 7. That's 50-50. And I don't get it. So my lieutenant dies and he catches up. So I'm only 1 dice ahead. And that was the end of the game. That was the finish. So he, on the very last order dice, he actually catches up to me on a Hail Mary shot. That was very unlikely. But there you go. He did catch up to me. So, my mistakes. One mistake that was critical and that allowed Danny to catch me was that I push up one of my steward 1 inch too far. Over here behind the dodge was Danny's multi-rocket launcher, and I had pushed up my steward here to shoot his multi-rocket launcher. I pushed too far, and Danny pulls in his reserve dodge. He pulls out his engineers. He shoots. He hits. He kills my steward. And it was a long shot and moved and everything. He hit and killed my steward. God damn it, I should have been just 1 inch further back. 1 inch. That was a mistake. But having lost 1 steward to a mistake, and on a table like this, you can basically see how hard it was to not be near a house. It was impossible. Against 2 multi-rocket launchers, I think I did well. Danny's mistakes. Oh, by the way, here you can see my deliberate slow push of Gurkhas here. Danny's immobilized steward sitting up there. These Gurkhas have already killed his sniper over here. And I'm deliberately, very slowly pushing 3 units of Gurkhas up. Here is my lieutenant, who gets killed at the end by Danny's lieutenant up here in the house. I was very slowly pushing up towards this place here, where my artillery bombardment had landed, pinned everyone, and killed his multi-rocket launcher. Or did I kill it somehow? I can't remember how I killed it. I did kill it at one point. So Danny's mistakes for me was that he forgot about preparatory bombardment. Huge mistake. He could have been punished way harder for that. He also splits his forces, which I don't think is a very clever thing to do in a kill point scenario where your forces can't support each other. And he tried several times to activate units that had 2 pins. Activating units that have 2 pins, you're very, very likely not to get it. And for Danny's engineers in the center, that actually meant that for 4 turns of the game, they were out. Because they got pinned during preparatory bombardment. He tried to activate them, he tried to rally them, then he tried to activate them again, then he tried to rally them again. So it took 4 turns for him to get those into the game, and they never really did anything. So trying to activate on double pins, for me, I won't do that normally. If I'm at double pins, I'll typically, unless I have up and at 'em, which all of my Gurkhas of course did. So I was not worried at all by the 2 pins you see here on this Gurkha unit. They didn't bother me at all because I could see enemies and I could just charge them. I knew I could. But Danny's activations were risky. But maybe he felt like he needed to take risks at this point. So The end result was a draw, unfortunately. I could not close the deal and keep him on 7 kills. It was 9-8 on kills. Most of my units died due to multi-rocket launcher fire. And yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. That's just the name of the game, right? So at this point, I knew that finishing in first place was maybe out of the question because I had drawn against Danny here. But I still felt optimistic that I could maybe get a podium end. So and it was really good to play a game against Danny. Danny had, of course, one Sealand Open, so I knew he was worth the fight. And he had also at a previous Danish nationals been in the podium places with me before, so top match. So that was it. That was my third game, and we were ready for day two. Yes.